Welcome back everybody to the third annual Mayrio Month. Today we're going to be talking about Super Mayrio Maker. Listen, I'm still fine with doing this in May instead of March. Leave me alone. Super Mario Maker is one of my favorite things that Nintendo's ever done. Not just because, hey, we finally have a level editor for Mario of all franchises, that's really cool. No, it's because back in 2015, people were pretty sick of New Super Mario Bros. This is kind of a response to that. I just imagine Miyamoto was sitting in his office like, oh what, you don't like our games all of a sudden? Well, make one your own damn self! Super Mario Maker is probably the strongest game that validates the Wii U's entire existence. Yeah, you got games like Splatoon, Tropical Freeze, The Wonderful 101, all great games on that console. But the mere concept of drawing out levels on the gamepad? Well, suddenly the Wii U's gimmick just makes a whole lot more sense. But with the impending Super Mario Maker 2 for the Switch coming very soon, I think it's finally time we call it. It's been a good run, but this is the final nail in the coffin. With this experience no longer being tied down to the Wii U, there's just no reason to turn that console on regularly anymore. None. I'm sorry to all you Devil's Third fans out there. So how about it? One last hurrah for the original Super Mario Maker. Let's take a look at the legacy that it's leaving behind. Oh my god, what is that? Now this game probably has one of the easiest selling points to ever grace gaming, period. Super Mario Bros. 1, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, New Super Mario Bros. U. All pretty good games, right? Absolute classics. Well, now there's an editor that lets you make your very own levels based on those 4 games. Now you can't make levels as complex as those source games, things are kept pretty simplistic here. The lack of slopes, for example. Even after updating the game a whole bunch, slopes just never managed to make it into Super Mario Maker, despite there being slopes in the Smash Brothers stage. That was pretty mean. Yeah, you can tell why they started the sequel's debut trailer with these things. They knew. They knew. I'm sure this level of simplicity was to reduce the barrier to entry for people who just wanted to goof around and throw blocks all over the place. You see, I know a thing or two about ROM hacks. I've seen the best that the community has to offer. And the worst. And it's important to know that going into this official editor, nothing is going to come close to what's possible with emulators. However, while a bunch of elements from those source games didn't make it into here, there are still a ton of new things built specifically for this level editor to emphasize that this is all in good fun. I mean, this is all that we get in terms of any sort of story. Yeah, we don't gotta take this seriously. You want Hammer Bros in Super Mario World, a game where they never appeared in? Cool. How about an airship theme for Mario 1? Sweet addition. How about this? Truly, Mario Maker separates the masochists from the rest of society. Why? What this all means is that despite any sort of limitations, some top creators have come out of the woodwork over the years and exercised some incredible levels of creativity. One of my favorite things that spawned from this game is an entire remake of Undertale from start to finish. There's even a genocide option if you want. Look at the dry bones with blue eyes. It's Sans. There are a few different ways to experience the levels that have been uploaded by the players, all courtesy of Course World. On one side of things, there is the 100 Mario Challenge. You choose a difficulty, you get given 100 lives, then get tossed into stages pulled randomly from the server that fit whatever difficulty quota they deem sensible. And for the most part, it actually works. You know, the easy stages are super short and sometimes barren of any obstacles, but as you go up the difficulty ladder, they become more challenging, and in my opinion, a whole lot more fun. You do still see some crap every now and then, but hey, just skip the level and pull another one instead. Easy peasy. However, for whatever sick reason, after months of this game being released, Nintendo thought that releasing a super expert difficulty was a good idea. Ha, it wasn't. Now maybe this is the impatient old man in me, but normal difficulty was already the perfect chance to see some quality stuff. Expert was a bit more of a crapshoot, but it was still possible to have some fun. I could not tell you a single time I saw something good from Super Expert. It's just filled with nothing but insane death traps that are impossible to see coming your first time through. Sure, when trying to troll your friends for a laugh, it's all fine and good, but suddenly these stages get uploaded for the world to see 5 minutes in, and I want to snap my gamepad in half, and come on man, those things are expensive. But I understand all a player has to do is complete their level themselves to be able to upload it to the server. But that just means that they can throw a million traps at you that the creator can just bypass in testing, and then boom, I wanna cry. Maybe some of you guys out there really love this stuff, it's certainly not for me. Luckily, that is why the rest of Course World exists. Aside from the 100 Mario challenge, we have multiple ways to filter out some of the best stages and overall creators and play some of the top tier content. Now this is what I'm talking about, man. This is why I love Mario Maker. I am so glad these top creators exist. I am by no means a creative type with level editors. I made a few stages way back when the game first released, but it's really not for me. Like here's one, I remade one of the tree levels from Super Mario Land 2. I thought that was kinda cool. That's the best I got. Maybe I'm just crazy here, but despite there being so much uncertainty with the level of quality you're about to dive into with each stage, I would still much rather devote time to this than New Super Mario Bros. That game was plagued with been there, done that, but here, who knows? At least I found my way to have my money's worth with playing the game this way instead of dealing with the level editor, because it's just not my thing. I mean, with enough tinkering around, you can play Mario Paint's Nat Attack. I take it all back, this is what validates the Wii U's gamepad. But just do a little bit of digging to find the top ranking stuff and you're gonna find a bunch of gold. There's this one stealth level where you blend in with your surroundings to the Mission Impossible theme song playing in the back. That's incredible. You got automatic levels that are purely spectacle, expecting very little to no interaction from the player. There are stages that are simply meant to show off the music creation tool, and that is also incredible. And hats off to the speedrun community, they have done incredible things too. Just take one glimpse at a Games Done Quick segment and it shows that these people treat the game way differently than everybody else, and it is awesome to watch. Oh, and the costumes, oh man, the costumes are so cool. This game features well over 100 different Nintendo and not Nintendo characters and items as playable costumes, unlocked by either completing the 100 Mario challenge on any difficulty, thank goodness, or by utilizing the equivalent character's amiibo. Finally, you can play a Mario game as Sonic. And as expected, Sonic looks super weird. Whenever a new costume dropped, Nintendo usually released a special event stage to go along with it, putting you through a challenge that sort of makes sense for the character that you're playing as. And this simple concept is one of the best parts about the game as a whole. You see, when you play in the Mario 3, World, or U style, the controls and abilities that you can pull off match that source game, meaning that inherently Mario 1 is incredibly limited. So to make up for that, all of these playable characters are exclusive to Mario 1, giving us some stages that may be weird with Mario at the helm, but hey, now we have a Zelda dungeon and we can play as Link. That's awesome. The only thing that this game is missing is Hello Kitty. And just because, who cares at this point, you can add sound effects to levels too. It's a pretty cool idea, but the more levels that you play, the more you see that people, when they have access to the rave tool, I think people go a little bit overboard with it. You know, I get it, the rave music is funny, it's out of place, but 20 levels in, I'm just sitting there in the flashing bright lights just waiting for it to end. Honestly, this is more or less what I expected. When you give a level creation toolbox to a world of creators, this is really nothing out of the ordinary. The cream eventually rises to the top, of course, but let's be honest here. Most of the stuff uploaded to the server in the past few years it's been pretty bad. Like I said, a majority of these are great pranks to play on buddies. There is no doubt about that whatsoever, but when you try to play the mode that is sort of like the main single player mode, yeah, no. Well, that's sort of where the 3DS port comes in. Super Mario Maker for Nintendo 3DS. Wow, Nintendo stealing the same subtitle as Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS. What a ripoff. Now this is a weird game. It's such a shameless Wii U port, this version doesn't even fit the entire screen during gameplay, matching the normal 16:9 screen resolution as expected from the console version. That's very odd. There is so much missing from this package too. All of those different costumes that I was just raving about, gone. Despite the 3DS having amiibo support, for some reason here, just not a thing. That eliminates the ability to play any of the levels that use them. But you know what? Who cares? You can't upload stages to the servers anyway, and you can't even search for them to download either. There are 2 different modes where Nintendo will throw stages at you, but there is no way to find specific ones like you can on the Wii U. And you can only send and receive stages that have been created by players via Street Pass, which is very lame. Nintendo really thought that this was a good idea? Ha, it wasn't. However, there is one very notable addition that makes this version stand out. There is a full-on single-player mode here with 100 levels that were created by Nintendo themselves, presented to you in a somewhat traditional world-by-world format. And alongside you for the adventure, you are guided by Mayrio and her bird companion, Yamamura. It's pretty funny, actually. Mayrio, that name takes a shot at all the people who incorrectly pronounce Mario's name as, well, Mario. But also, it kind of validates my Mayrio Month naming scheme. Thank you, Nintendo. Hopefully people stop telling me it's a dumb name by now. Now this single player mode, it's actually pretty cool and makes this version kinda worth it. At a discount. It's a large amount of quality, bite-sized levels with challenges attached to them. It's pretty refreshing for 2D Mario, honestly, especially if the new series has you burnt out like it has for other people. Otherwise, this version simply exists in an attempt for Nintendo to recoup their costs after losing money on the Wii U, and that's about it. It'll be interesting to see in the future if anything else of note comes from the original Super Mario Maker. I mean, the game at launch compared to the game now are like 2 totally different products, and that was awesome. The amount of fantastic levels that spawned from this game, it was awesome to experience, and all of the additions that are being added to the sequel, man, the creative player base is gonna eat that all up, and as a player, I'm super excited. Super Mario Maker is a monumental title in Nintendo's history, leaving behind a great legacy based purely on the players rather than the developers themselves. And all of this as a part of the franchise featuring the most famous video game character out there? Yeah, I would say that's kind of a big deal. But you know, if we could really tone it down with the rave music in the future, that'd be nice. There's something special about a good old game of Mario Party, you know? Getting together with a few friends to mash some buttons, plan out your upcoming turns on the board of your choice, building and crushing alliances, basically at the toss of a dice. It is such a good formula that has worked so well for generations. For the most part. And then the Mario Party games started getting bad, etc, etc. This is a story I'm pretty sure most of you are caught up with. Opinions on the console Mario Party games are already well established, like how the day-night mechanic in Mario Party 6 makes that the best one. That's just an objective fact. Whether or not you agree with it is not my problem. However, there is a side to this story that doesn't get discussed anywhere near as often. Oh god. Mario Party on portables. Conceptually, this makes perfect sense. Nintendo's handheld consoles sell like crazy, so there is definitely a market for taking the party on the go. These are also not numbered entries, so this allows the developers to try something new. What could possibly go wrong? Oh. Alright, to be fair, those scores are based on when the games launched. Maybe looking back at these in retrospect, we'll find something special here. 5 parties in 3 different houses. I know people are gonna bring up Super Mario Party since it's on the Switch and one of the main console selling points is the portability, but for some reason, that game doesn't support handheld mode. Years later, that still doesn't make any sense, so that one is disqualified. And no, we're not gonna talk about Mario Party E here. It was a cute little e-reader novelty, sure, but I'm gonna need a lot more time to build up the willpower to actually play it. So, back to square one, back to 2005. Starting off, we have Mario Party Advance, and this game is primarily single player. Oh, we're off to a great start. Hi there. Hello. Before we really dive into things, I gotta talk about just how this game starts up. We're making a passport, apparently. You got your name, your month of birth, no date, just the month, that's interesting. You make an avatar. Wow, that's kinda cool, actually. Mario Party Advance did Miis before Miis were a thing. Okay. Yeah, that's me, alright. You then get to input your favorite hobby. I'm a big apostrophe guy myself. And finally, a random comment. I couldn't really fit the whole thing, so like, comment, subscribe. That'll get the job done. You then get asked what your biggest dream is and what your silliest secret is. I'm sorry, we're getting really personal here. I'm not really all that comfortable saying all these personal details. Okay, I sure hope no one finds out. And the real kicker is none of this stuff matters. As far as I know, there is no other point in the game where it calls back to the answers you provided, so what's the point? The main mode of the game is Shroom City, the only thing even remotely reminiscent of the series staple board games. And you're in a car as well. Wow, we should have saw the dark times coming long ago. You roll the dice, you move across the board to specifically marked locations. That's it. Whenever you get to a new spot, a little cutscene will play out starting off a brand new quest, usually leading to the most basic of minigames you could possibly imagine, or even a fetch quest, you know, the most fun thing you could ever do at a party. I love the snowman one. He challenges you to baseball. Swing for the fences, I doubt you can do it. He's dead now. There really isn't that much more here than that. You got a bunch of these locations all across the map, and by completing enough of the challenges, you can travel over to Bowser's place and play a special minigame against him. You do that enough times, that's the game. You only have a few dice rolls per round as well. You play minigames to try to gain more. If you run out of dice and hit 0, well, that's it. You either move on to do something else, or you go back in for more. Failing the minigames is often common as well. They're pretty vague with their instructions, so expect to consistently start off at the beginning and plan your route from there. But that's fine, that's basically essential. Some of the quests you can only do with specific characters. The eyeball has a princess only policy, apparently, and a cute little dinosaur, you know, that couldn't possibly do. I suppose if you're looking for a time waster, this will certainly do that. This isn't a party, this is more or less the video game equivalent of doing chores. And not in the fun Animal Crossing way. I will say this much, I do think the game's sprites are pretty nice. You know, I've always been a fan of the game's style, even if we lost some playable characters along the way. Rest in peace, Waluigi. And as for the minigames, well, they're minigames, alright. But like I said before, Mario Party Advance is primarily single player, so these games are all about either getting to the end or getting a bunch of points. And in general, the whole lack of competition just makes this entire thing feel pretty pointless. There are a couple multiplayer games you can play with a link cable, so that's appreciated, but they're off to the side in a separate mode. They feel like even more of a total afterthought. Oh, but we do have a bunch of toys that we can gain access to, that's fun. How can I possibly forget about the extra bit where you can guess what direction the stick is gonna fall in? Oh boy, this party is too much for me. Oh hey, there's a sheep counting one as well, which is great because this game is putting me to sleep. I mean, I guess I just didn't know what to expect. I mean, obviously a Game Boy Advance wasn't gonna come close to providing an experience that the console Mario Party games can. But you know you didn't have to make a Game Boy Advance game, right? But now we have the Nintendo DS. This is a console that could better handle a Mario extravaganza. Power-wise, the DS was already kinda sort of an N64 you can put in your pocket, and it sold ridiculously well, so there was no shortage of people to play with. Now, the time may be right to give this type of game a shot. And I mean, look at the box art! They're running across blue spaces! Things are already looking up. My god. Yeah, this is Mario Party on the DS. Oh, awesome! Finally, in a more typical Mario Party fashion, we have multiple boards to play on, all of which having a different theme. 4 different characters, you roll the dice, you save up coins to get stars. This is honest to goodness Mario Party. And yeah, it's pretty good. We even have a story mode that ties everything together. Bowser gets his hands on a special scepter that shrinks everybody down to a very tiny size, and the only way to reverse it is to collect sky crystals by defeating the bosses of all the boards. Simple premise, this is a Mario Party game after all, but the thing that's really cool is the game fully embraces the smaller scope. For example, the first board is a flower garden where all the plants tower over you in size. One of the later ones is a pinball table where getting knocked around is one of the primary gimmicks. And the mini-games, they may not all hit the tiny aesthetic, but most of them do. Running away from a vacuum cleaner, feeding a shy guy candy, a game of chicken where you see who stops the furthest down a chalkboard without face planting. It's really cool stuff. Do you remember the minigame Shock, Drop, and Roll from Mario Party 2? Pretty fun one. Well, you give it a new coat of paint, you call it Rotisserie Rampage, and it is fresh once again. This game also uses the touchscreen, so it plays differently as well. As a matter of fact, there are multiple games that use the touchscreen, making good use of one of the DS's best features. Likewise, a few of the games also use the microphone, making good use of one of the DS's least interesting features. You know, kudos to the developers for giving it multiple shots, but microphones and Mario Party don't mix. I'm sorry, just not my thing. Overall, they are more or less on par with your standard run-of-the-mill minigames, but the style really gives this game its own identity. It's kinda like the pop-up book aesthetic from Mario Party 3. The chances of getting together a group of people to knock out a board game or two may not be as high as it was back when the game was new, and even still, it doesn't compete with some of the best you can find on consoles, but regardless, it is a damn good effort. Outside of the story, we also have a handful of multiplayer modes, a decent amount of collectibles to go for, and also a pretty nifty puzzle mode, pulling in multiple puzzle games from the previous Mario Parties. I remember playing Puzzle Party so much back in Mario Party 3, and I love that it's found its place here too. This entire mode is actually pretty cool, and it's a really nice way to celebrate a part of the series' history. Boy, do I ever love foreshadowing. So this is pretty impressive. We went from absolutely pointless with Mario Party Advance to not one of the best, but definitely one of the more interesting games in the series with Mario Party DS. I mean, at its core, it just feels like Mario Party, which, you know, may not sound like that big of a deal for a game titled Mario Party, but boy, do I love foreshadowing. If you want to check the game out, it's also available digitally on the Wii U, which eliminated any chance of playing in multiplayer, so you know, not everything about the game is good. Advance and DS were the only portable contributions developed by the initial series developers, Hudson Soft. Advance may not be good, but at least it's original, and I'll give them credit, they worked with what they got. I guess. But I'll be damned, if you're a fan of this series, I would definitely recommend DS. Uh-oh. And now's where things go completely off the rails. You know how the development team shifted from Mario Party 9 from Hudson Soft to ND-Cube, and a lot of people hated it? Well, guess who developed the 3DS games? These three games go back to that initial idea of, hey, they're not main numbered entries, we can do something new here. And on almost all accounts, they do a terrible job evoking the vibe that a good old-fashioned Mario Party game should have. Sure, maybe having a party on the go is destined to fail and the DS game is simply a fluke, but considering 9 and 10 were developed around these games and we're all aware of how well they were received, I just don't think they really cared. You may have assumed that with the previous game being good and a jump to new hardware, things are gonna get even better. But no. Oh no. The story on 3DS begins with Island Tour, and while it does start up with a minor glimmer of hope, it doesn't take long for that to get totally dashed. I'm gonna be straight up with all of you. The boards here, they just suck. All of them. For one, they're all linear, and while the car concept gave us linear boards as well, at least that was done in an effort to make turns go by faster. But also, we're back to the each person takes a turn approach, so now it feels even longer for a turn to finish since everyone's going down the same straight line separately, while the person in first place is more guaranteed to win than ever before. Terrible gimmicks too, having to constantly duck and cover from a potential Banzai Bill blast in an otherwise ridiculously short course may be one of the worst boards in series history. That being said though, the minigames, they're quite alright. I'll give the game credit, Island Tour is home to a solid bunch of minigames, some of which using some of the features of the 3DS, like the gyroscope and the touchscreen. And thankfully, there are some extra minigame exclusive modes, and those are definitely more fun than any of the boards. One of the minigames I really liked is one where you draw on the touchscreen so you can keep track of 12 enemy cards. That is one of the most clever minigames in the entire series. There's even a few augmented reality games too. Yeah, that stack of cards the 3DS initially came with, you remember those? In practice, it's a little more novel than it is fun, but I got a slight kick out of it. Graphically, the game looks okay, so at least the jump in hardware showed something positive here, but overall, Island Tour is a bit of a train wreck. The following attempt was Mario Party Star Rush. Thankfully, this one fares a bit better. Rather than attempting to put a spin on what worked in the past, this time we kinda just got a ton of ideas thrown at a board, and whether or not they were gonna stick is totally up in the air. The main feature here is Toad Scramble, where a group of 4 toads move around a board, collecting coins and getting stars, as you would expect, but everybody moves independently, at the same time, and you're free to move in any direction as you wish. Playing as generic Toads is pretty lame, but one objective you have is to recruit other Mario characters to join your party, and doing so gives you some of their benefits for the rest of the game. They allow you to use special dice blocks, and they can also handle specific obstacles across the boards. And another kind of neat example, minigames don't really pop up super often, but if you get to reach a boss fight, rather than all 4 characters jumping in at the same time, the remaining characters have to rush over to the spot while you score some points early on. Say what you will about the newer Mario Party games, that is a really smart idea. You see, this is what I wanted when we're talking about an original take on Mario Party for a portable console. It's not necessarily a ton of fun, it's difficult to come back against someone who's in the lead, the visuals are overall pretty bland and unoriginal, and in the later stages you'll be repeating the same boss battles that you just did not too long beforehand. But it's still an original concept, that's not terrible, so it's a noteworthy attempt in my opinion. Probably why we saw a return in Super Mario Party, which was pretty fun there too. We got no stick falling toy this time around, but I think I can manage. Aside from that, there are a couple of extra modes, and they kinda fall flat. Once again, they threw together a bunch of ideas and hoped for the best. There's a random rhythm game in here. It has no bearing on the rest of the game, the songs you can choose are okay, and the actual game part isn't that fun, so why? And then there's the minigames, and they're pretty unremarkable as well. Star Rush features a shockingly small number of them, but we also have the Coinathon mode. This kind of makes up for it. Characters race around a board based on the coins that you pick up in time-based games, while also picking up some items along the way to benefit yourself and screw over your opponents. It's fast, it's frantic, and it's fun. Holy cow, we have a fun one here, everybody! Listen, Star Rush isn't gonna win any awards or anything like that, but it's not that terrible, so that's nice, I guess. It is definitely better than Island Tour though, so things are beginning to look up. I shouldn't have said that out loud. Mario Party is a massive, successful franchise, and it should be celebrated. How did they screw up such a basic idea? The final game we have today is Mario Party The Top 100, bringing together the top 100 minigames from the 10 console games and throwing them onto the 3DS. And it really doesn't do much more than that. I have multiple questions. First off, why is this on the 3DS? I am all for remaking classics, but shouldn't this be on the Switch instead? Wouldn't that have made more sense? I would argue it's tougher mashing buttons or spinning the circle pad on a 3DS than on a controller, so some of the games that we have here just don't feel right. Also, the top 100. According to who? Nobody asked me which games were good. Certainly would not have put Crank to Rank on there. Definitely none of the chance games. Those only kinda work when you're playing the board game. There's no dungeon duos? That seemed like a shoo-in as far as I'm concerned. That is one of the best 2v2 games in the series. Ultimately, what we have here, it's not a terrible collection. I just think the name The Top 100 is very misleading. It's not the top 100. It's just 100. Thankfully, Booksquirm is here. That's nice. Hell, that's a top 10 right there. None of the minigames from Mario Party 6 utilize the day-night system. That's really lame. That's what made those games special in the first place. Some entries also only have very little representation here. It's kind of weird not simply picking 10 minigames from each of the 10 console games to make things even. Oh, and we do have a board game based on Star Rush, and there's only one very tiny board. Come on, why? Admittedly, I did enjoy Minigame Island. That made a comeback here. It's the main single-player mode where you just plow through a bunch of the minigames in order. That's it. It is a fun ride, because I already enjoyed these minigames in the better console versions. But if you can find the game for cheap, Top 100 may be worth it alone just for this mode. It is the most substantial and varied mode of any of the 3DS Mario parties. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's where we are. If we had returning boards and more returning modes, we would have a potential masterpiece here. Believe it or not, there's a lot more to Mario Party than just the minigames. I played through it, had a decent time, put the console down, didn't really feel much of anything afterwards. And yeah, that's Mario Party The Top 100. Oh, but hey, at least we have 3D support. Whoa. Dang. It's like I really want to be playing something else instead. I really don't want to be that much of a downer here, but it's safe to say that the legacy of portable Mario Party games is absolutely wild. Mario Party DS is the clear highlight here since, you know, It's an actual Mario Party game. The other 4 certainly experiment with relatively interesting ideas, but aside from some bright moments in Star Rush and Top 100, and of course Advance's Falling Stick, truly a gem of the GBA library, it all just feels like a waste of time. Once ND Cube took over the series, it felt like simply a matter of releasing games as much as they possibly could, but not releasing quality ones. Mario Party may not be for everybody, I understand that, but there is still an identity to uphold because it has a massive fan base. Either stick to what works and polish it up really nicely, or really dedicate some time to your original idea before putting out a finished product. Don't just make some software where you roll a dice on a board and call it a day. Definitely check out Mario Party DS, think about Star Rush, laugh at the rest. That is my best recommendation. If we never get a dedicated handheld console from Nintendo again, then we can confidently say that the portable Mario Party games is one hell of a 5-game long roller coaster of a sub-series. Maybe if the next Mario Party game on Switch has handheld play, then we'll have something to look forward to. It can't possibly get any worse than these. Just please bring back the falling stick toy. That's all I ask. It's all I'm asking. I'm a simple man. I see a stick. I want it to fall. I like to think you all think the same way.
Just what I needed.
The Game Boy Advance is home to a fantastic library of games. Even when you just look at Nintendo's output, we got great new IP like Drill Dozer and Golden Sun, series that made their localized debut in great fashion like Advance Wars and Fire Emblem, and awesome entries to long-running franchises like Metroid Fusion, Minish Cap, Wario Land 4, so many good games. Nintendo treated their properties really well on their new advanced piece of portable hardware. Except for Mario. Did you ever notice that despite being the golden child, Mario's lineup on the Game Boy Advance is pretty damn sad? Superstar Saga was awesome, the same can be said for Mario vs. Donkey Kong. The sports games weren't all that bad. Party was though. Oh god, Pinball Land. I keep trying to forget that one. One of the more interesting things about the GBA's life is that we never got an original Mario platformer. All these years later, despite being as successful as it was. That's really weird. That being said though, obviously we did get a few games that would otherwise fit the bill. The Super Mario Advance series. Super Mario Advance. One could easily see this and think, oh yeah, you know, just a bunch of Mario ports. And somebody else could think, oh yeah, that time Nintendo was very chronologically confused. Mario 2, then World, Yoshi's Island, and then 3. Oh no, Super Mario Advance 4 Super Mario Bros. 3 is still one of the best titles Nintendo has ever come up with. But you may also notice that there's one main Mario game of the era missing from that list. The original Super Mario Bros. There was a port to the GBA as part of the classic NES series, certainly a cool novelty at the time, but now, Squished Mario just comes off as really cursed. But in all actuality, Super Mario Advance was simply following the trend set back on the Game Boy Color with Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. It's not like it's all too special nowadays or anything like that, but it is easily a better version of the classic. Screen crunch is the most notable thing about this, so it's definitely not the most ideal way to play the game, but it's actually not that bad. Probably because I've already played these stages like 100 times over at this point, so it's all muscle memory by now. You can keep shrinking the screen. I'll still find my way to the end. The cool thing though is all of the extras that got thrown in. There's a couple new interface additions like a main menu and even a world map. That's pretty cute. There's this fancy new challenge mode where levels are now populated by 5 red coins, as well as a hidden Yoshi egg, and there's even a bonus challenge to score enough points. This really retools how you approach a Mario stage, and it's a lot of fun. Ah, you versus Boo, this mode is so cool. This is a series of brand new stages, all based around racing and blocking your opponent with these special boxes. You can also go through this with another player, which is really awesome. They brought this game back out of nowhere for one of the Nintendo World Championships, and it was genuinely one of the most exciting parts of that night. There's a couple of extra goodies too, most of which actually use the old Game Boy camera. That's kinda neat. And even the sequel, Lost Levels, is here as well, under the title For Super Players, which, you know, more bang for your buck, I guess. Game still sucks though. Adding new content to classic Mario games like this would presumably be the basis for the games that would soon after hit the Game Boy Advance. Now, I'm assuming that most of you have already played these games, at least the originals on the NES and Super Nintendo, so I'm gonna spare you a legitimate review of the core games here, because, yeah man, hot take, Super Mario World is pretty good. I'm glad I finally got to get that off my chest. Instead though, I think it's interesting to see how these versions differ from their originals. They didn't just port these games and call it a day, each one includes a handful of differences, either due to the console that they were released on, or simply being a cool new thing that you can't find anywhere else. One of the most notable inclusions is that of a retooled arcade Mario Bros. Yeah, that extra menu option that's also found in Superstar Saga, all 4 of the Mario Advance games feature this as well. All of the box arts boast of this really fancy 4-player multiplayer, and I hate to burst your bubble here, I really do, but it's just for Mario Bros. And for years, even back when I talked about Superstar Saga, I never knew why they kept including this in so many of their games. But leave it to the comments section of all places to let me know why. I never realized this, but as long as you have multiple GBAs, a link cable, and at least 2 of these games, then you instantly have access to something you can play multiplayer. It seemed like just this weird inside joke for so long, but suddenly, it makes a ton of sense. So hey, kudos for keeping portable multiplayer alive, even if I had no idea what you were doing for so many years. When it comes to the main core of these, they are the same games that you remember. Mario 2 and 3 are more based on their versions that were found in Super Mario All-Stars though, which is still pretty cool. Obviously, they're more graphically advanced than the NES versions, and personally, those are the versions that I grew up with, so they're my preferred versions in the first place. However, as you've also probably noticed, the color palettes are a lot more washed out than those originals. They just look kinda odd when put up side by side with their sources. Well, actually, this was done to compensate for the darker screen on the early GBAs. The brighter colors simply made things pop out more. If you've ever played the GBA port of Donkey Kong Country, it is very apparent there as well. However, in between the releases of Advance 3 and 4, in early 2003, Nintendo released the GBA SP, featuring a backlight, a feature that other handhelds were already doing years prior. Holy cow, I'm surprised they really got away with this for so long. And, well, since it wasn't really much of an issue anymore, the portable version of Super Mario Bros. 3 more so resembles the original color palette. I never minded the more washed out colors, but it's still nice to see a more accurate design here. As far as the gameplay goes, Super Mario World and Yoshi's Island are the most similar to their console counterparts. There really isn't that much here that makes these a whole lot more than the Super Nintendo versions on the go. There is now an opening cutscene for World, showing Mario and Luigi enjoying the island while Peach gets kidnapped along the way. Basically the same exact thing that happened in New Super Mario Bros. 2. Once you dive in though, this is certainly Super Mario World, alright. They did manage to fix that one stray pixel in the original's title screen, so that's really nice. Yeah, that's totally a thing. I was cursed with this knowledge, so now I'm paying it forward. Luigi also plays differently here, accompanied by a brand new look. In the All-Stars version of Mario World, he had an original sprite there as well, but he still played exactly like Mario. Here, he falls more in line with how he looked in the first Advance game, and he also has some of his typical control quirks, like a higher jump and worse traction. Hey, it's minor, but it's still nice being able to play a familiar game in a slightly different way. The Dragon Coins are also more useful now, being an actual collectible that works towards 100% completion rather than just being there. Finding all of them gets you a nifty little cutscene, and then all of the coins just return to their original locations, but now they have Peach's face on them instead. Oh, thank goodness, that's what the original game was missing. Yoshi's Island has even fewer changes. There's a new world total screen. That's nice. The red coins are harder to distinguish now. That's not nice. There's a new world select map. Oh, I found this new room in level 1-8. That wasn't there before. Yeah, this is just Yoshi's Island. The big new thing that really stands out is 6 brand new secret levels, 1 in each world. They're all much bigger in size than the original stages, and they're really fun. Difficult to fully complete as well. I mean, damn, okay. This ends up making the overall level count a nice even 60, and that is just satisfying to see. Otherwise, yeah man, this is Yoshi's Island on the go. Did you ever find it weird how often they kept porting this version of the game and not the Super Nintendo original? 3DS ambassadors and Wii U owners got the GBA port. despite SNES games being a totally viable option on both. Did the fuzzies make the Super Nintendo version too much of a pipe dream, so you had to make an entirely new piece of hardware to finally bring the game back to us? Ultimately, both versions are good, but since they're more or less identical, the console version offers undoubtedly the more definitive experience. Aside from those 6 levels, they're pretty cool. Now, I know I'm gonna go out of order here, but hell, didn't stop Nintendo. Let's talk about the first Super Mario Advance, since this one has a few more noticeable differences. First and foremost, I always loved the opening cutscene, the characters emerging from the shadows before things widen up for the main attraction. That little window is actually the exact resolution of the original Game Boy, and considering this was a launch title for the GBA, a console that can also play those older games, it is a pretty effective way of showing off the graphical upgrade of the new system. Now, why they chose Super Mario Bros. 2 as the game to kick things off, I'll never know. But here we are. Some of the changes here are smaller, simple bells and whistles. They can now stretch and mangle sprites whenever they want to, and they never once waste an opportunity to prove it. I don't know what this is. I don't think anybody's been able to figure this one out. There are a bunch of extra large Shy Guys that can now be found in random spots, and I gotta say, kudos on the jiggle physics. I'm a big fan. You can now tear the ribbon off of Birdo, rectifying the main complaint everybody had with the original. And also, nobody shuts up now, so that's cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
This is as far as you go.
Cool, great, awesome. Glad that's in the game. We now have red coins to collect, and there's also an extra Yoshi challenge mode, hiding a few Yoshi eggs in all of the levels, no doubt influenced by Super Mario Bros. Deluxe before it. There's even a brand new boss with Row Birdo. Never seen before, never seen since. It just sort of exists here in this bubble as an interesting piece of Mario trivia, and nothing more. Otherwise, yeah, this is a modified Super Mario Bros. 2 on GBA. This was the first game I got for the console, and I played it a ton, so while it may have been a bit of an odd choice, I'd say it was a good one. And all that's left is Super Mario Bros. 3, and on the surface, we have another faithful adaptation of the classic. We got another new opening cutscene, that's pretty nice. Anytime stories that previously only existed in the game's manual gets thrown into the game itself is always nice in my opinion. Otherwise though, what makes this version interesting isn't in the main game, it's in all of the extras. Allow me to reintroduce the e-reader. I've kinda gone over this weird peripheral already in the past, but during its short existence, Mario Advance 4 is definitely Nintendo's strongest attempt to get people to care, even packing in some cards with new copies of the game. By linking up a GBA with the game to another GBA with an e-reader, what do you mean this didn't take off? You're able to put in new content into this game. Replays of high-level gameplay, new items for your inventory, including the cape from Super Mario World, which is honestly just really surreal, and easily the coolest of all, brand new stages, all accessible in the special World E. You got really good level designs, enemies from other games, grass you can pick up from Mario 2. All of these years later, this is still such a wild inclusion. And it really sucks that barely anybody got to experience it. I had a few of these cards growing up, but man, nowadays these things are really not all that easy to come by. You can definitely get them by a simple online search, but they are nowhere near as prominent as, say, some random series of amiibo cards. And it didn't help that only about a third of all of the cards actually released outside of Japan, leaving over 20 levels unavailable to unlock by the intended means. And that is such a shame because this is, without a doubt, the most interesting part of the entire Super Mario Advance series, and easily the best thing the e-reader's ever done. Yeah, it's finally time to dethrone taking NES Pinball and splitting it up across 5 cards. The time has finally come. That's no longer cool. It never was cool. But just when you think this story is over, well, leave it to Nintendo to re-release Super Mario Advance 4 on the Wii U's Virtual Console with all of the e-reader levels in tow. The content has been accessible via hacking for years already, but to have an official way to play these otherwise thought to be lost stages is really, really cool. One of the underappreciated highlights of the Wii U's life. And yeah, that about sums up the entire Super Mario Advance series. Just pretty cool. Versions that do go beyond basic simple ports with plenty of interesting changes found throughout them. I think the smaller screen size easily disqualifies them from being the definitive way to play these games, but if you grew up with the GBA, chances are this is how you got to experience them, and ultimately, they're not bad versions of these games. Looking back, it is forever going to be weird that we never got an original Mario platformer on the Game Boy Advance, but enough effort was done with these titles to still make them relatively worthwhile, and this mindset would definitely continue on when Super Mario 64 got a similar treatment on the DS. But that's for another time. If you consider yourself a bit of a Mario historian, then I definitely recommend checking these games out. Just be mindful that if you do pick these games up on the Wii U, they totally lack multiplayer support. So all of those crazy arcade Mario Bros multiplayer sessions that you were just starting to plan out, you're gonna have to do it elsewhere, I'm sorry. Damn it, Nintendo, you were this close. This is why the Wii U failed. You know, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series is really weird now that I think about it. When it comes to all of the different side series in the Mario franchise, I feel like none are as all over the place as Mario vs. Donkey Kong. From gameplay styles to naming conventions and hell, even how the games became accessible to players. People often used to accuse Kirby of being the science experiment where Nintendo can try out a bunch of different ideas with very little risk. But in reality, you could almost say the same thing for these games too, especially in the later years. Only rivaled by like Mario Party on the e-reader, I guess? Now were these experiments successful? No? But it is still a surprisingly varied series, and that's enough to get me interested in this weird mini Mario-filled rabbit hole. These are also the games where Pauline finally got to shine. She didn't just suddenly reappear in Odyssey as the New Donk City mayor and that's it. She played a very pivotal role in this toy-based free market duel. And what better rivalry to base this weird series on than that of Mario and Donkey Kong, the original Nintendo 1v1. While both franchises would continue to grow and evolve as the years would go on, sometimes Donkey Kong outshining Mario in his own game, let's be honest here, these are the games where they both get to come back, be the stars once again, and remind us what brought them to the dance in the first place. And then toys got involved and the plot became something like a weird meta-commentary on consumerism. This is a weird series. Okay, so what if we completely turn this on its head? Our journey begins with Donkey Kong on the Game Boy, commonly called DK94, because it released in 1994. And now we have a specific comparison to Sonic 06. I know we're missing the Mario and versus in the title, but hey look, there's Mario, he's versusing Donkey Kong, this counts. On the surface, like many other games on the Game Boy, this does just come off as a remake of the original arcade game, just with some extra moves. What, did you think Mario learned how to somersault in 64? No. This adventure took place a few years earlier, and there it is. It is really fun going through these classic stages in a new way, but once you think it's over, oh, it just begins. Pulling off just a fantastic bait and switch, DK94 is actually a full-blown puzzle platformer. Each stage has a key, and you gotta figure out the best way to get to it and bring it to the locked door while avoiding an army of new enemies and getting it done in a time limit. Oh, and you got some classic bad guys here too, man. You got Bow Bow, Trash Can. There's a constant barrage of new mechanics as well. Each new idea is introduced with a little cutscene at the start of the worlds, and no gimmick ever overstays its welcome. You can pick up and throw things, Mario 2 style. There's wires all over the place that you can swing from. There are these little switches floating in the air that when you touch them, you can summon a trampoline or a flat surface. There is so much. There's even a bunch of boss encounters that manage to fit in perfectly, all being these little modifications to the original arcade idea of simply getting to Pauline. You do that, you win. And hey, even Donkey Kong Jr. is here. It is so easy to forget about this guy. Every appearance he has ever made after his own game was always so random, and then we just moved on as if it never happened, and then the poor guy lost his life trying to sell us on the Game Boy Advance e-reader. Bless his soul. DK94 is only about a 3-hour-long adventure, but it manages to do basically everything right. Even the music is really good, dude. The showdown at the tower theme did not need to go as hard as it does, but damn. Dude, damn, it is so good. It is simply put a great platformer on the Game Boy, an excellent example of an unexpected yet surprisingly faithful sequel, probably my favorite game on the entire console, honestly, and it is also a great showcase for the Super Game Boy. The use of colors is fantastic, the border is one of the best the peripheral has to offer, and there's even some voice samples. Money well spent. But now let's take this great foundation that we just created and make it all about consumerism. Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the Game Boy Advance. Okay, so like 5 seconds into just turning the game on, we're treated to DK lounging on a couch, watching TV, flipping through channels with a single buttoned remote, I don't know how that works, and he experiences hardcore FOMO, or fear of missing out, when a commercial for a new Mini Mario toy drops and the speaker implants subliminal messages into his psyche.
Hurry, buy one, buy them all! Buy them all! Buy them all! Buy them all!
Man, Donkey Kong is such an idiot. I'm glad I'm not stupid enough to fall for those types of marketing schemes. I am way too smart for that. Okay, but the real question is, how much do these Mini Marios cost? Oh, you see, now that's too much. This is when DK realizes how to get them at a discount. You steal them instead.
What are you doing? What's going on here? Oh, yeah, mamma mia.
Oh yeah, Mario's definitely a New York City Italian. What ensues is another world-spanning adventure, this time to rescue all of these stolen toys and bring DK to justice. And yeah, this is really just essentially more of the same, if I'm being honest. It looks a lot more impressive this time around, almost going for a Donkey Kong Country route by using the sprites that simulate 3D graphics and on the actual console itself, not blown up. It does look really good, but otherwise, I mean, the movesets are basically the same, a lot of similar puzzles show up. It's just that now, rather than just carrying a key to a door, stages also have a second act where you have to make your way to the toy. This then culminates with a final stage of the world where you have to safely guide all of the toys to their toy box. And the Mini Marios all yell if they're too far away from you. Getting big Baby Mario crying vibes from this, and I don't think that's a good thing. And then of course you go and kick DK's butt. It's almost the same exact thing as the last time, except Pauline's not here, and that's a big shame. But by playing it relatively safe, yeah, this is another fun time. There's a ton of levels to play through as well. Not only is there replay value in getting a star in the levels, there's also a whole slew of harder levels once you beat the final boss, utilizing a new Mini Mario with key mechanic. There's a lineup of expert levels on top of all that, and in the Japanese version, there's even stages unlocked with e-reader cards. Wait, there were Mario vs. DK e-reader cards? However, playing both DK94 and this back-to-back, I think the original game is so much better. The level designs in that game are a lot more compact, and you get offered a bunch of new ideas and gimmicks at a faster rate. All of the boss fights in Mario vs. Donkey Kong revolve around simply wailing damage on DK, where at least in DK94 you had those, but you also had the puzzle-focused encounters as well to offset them. Every single level gives you a tutorial video now, even if it's for a mechanic that you've already dealt with, and considering that replaces the original's cutscenes that introduced new worlds in a lot more charming way, yeah, I don't like these. It's all very nitpicky stuff. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is still good, but DK94 is definitely better in my opinion. Also, no DK Jr. I don't appreciate the disrespect. Both of these games are still great, and it is awesome to know that there are plenty of sequels out there that are surely going to be taking that formula and expanding it with a whole bunch of new possibilities thanks to newer hardware, and you know that is not at all what happened, and I just lied to you. Alright, so this is where things get just a bit bonkers. Here we have Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. I guess the Mini Mario toys were popular enough in the last game to just go overboard with them. The story is basically the same, new toys are dropping, DK has absolutely no concept of consumerism and supply and demand, except now, rather than steal toys, he steals the returning Pauline instead. Returning, by the way, with the design we now know her from in Odyssey. And Mario, I don't know, I guess he just didn't feel like it that day to help out, so he decides to utilize the toys and the toys alone to save the day. Friggin' lazy. And what we have now is a gameplay style more akin to Lemmings than an actual platformer. Once activated, the Mini Mario toys move on their own, and it is up to you to place all the pieces in a correct way thanks to the fancy new DS touchscreen to get them all to the goal. There's a bunch of varied level themes, new gimmicks to accompany them, pretty snazzy special plus mode levels that introduce extra minis to consider, a slew of unlockable hard levels. All of this content is exactly what you need to have a great puzzle game on your hands. It does go completely against against the idea of the original games that started this series being an evolution of the original arcade game, but in its own bubble, yeah, it's fine. Each of the worlds has a little mini game to play, all of the boss battles are very much touchscreen focused, there's even a full-blown level creator, and being able to share your puzzles around on message boards at the time and whatnot was really cool. Well, I assume at least. Clearly I lack all creative talent. It's all just fine. Scoping out the new landscape and figuring out all of the proper timings and pathways needed in order to get a gold rating on the level can be really satisfying. Clearly, because they went ahead and made the same game like 5 more times. Though this is the only installment where you have a lot more direct control, to be fair, being able to get the minis to stop on command, changing direction being a very common mechanic, and replacing the building blocks with expandable girders later on. The later games go for a more simplistic route, and personally, I do think that makes for a better game. In comparison, March of the Minis does occasionally feel like more brute forcing the toys to the goal rather than genuinely solving any puzzles. But that is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. It's still fine. But since the following games are so similar, is there any reason to go back to this one, to go back to March of the Minis? No? The 2-screen cutscenes are kind of cool though. A few years later, exclusive to the DSiWare service, we got Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis March Again. It's the same game. Like, okay, the level designs are new, the minis have a few more frames of animation now, so that's kind of nice. And like I just implied, you can no longer mess with the toys' direct movements after setting them off, which is better in my opinion, but I mean, they really couldn't be bothered giving this a whole new coat of paint. Even the story is exactly the same, except now it's presented as an animated slideshow. Ooh. Put these two games side by side, you cannot tell the difference. You see, the joke's on you, they're both March of the Minis. Wait, what's this? Guest mode? Oh yeah, you know, for when you have guests over and they want a little sampling of this game but no more. It's a common occurrence, I'm surprised more games don't have that. In actuality, it is just the main game, but lacking the ability to save your progress. So, finally a modern take on the no save mode from Sonic 3, I guess. Who played this? Did you play this? You probably didn't play this. DSiWare was such a weird service, man. I for one am astounded that the same service that brought us Mario Clock and Calculator didn't bring us a banger of a Mario puzzle game right here. I am furious. The true smart move is to save all the hits for a real sequel. Here we go, Mini Land Mayhem. New toy drops, Donkey Kong can't get it, steals Pauline in protest. Okay, we get it. So I do want to kind of immediately knock on this game because it is more of the same, but honestly, I actually did really like this one. It all comes down to the refined level design on top of the more refined control scheme of focusing solely on the environment around the minis while they all just move along reacting to your changes. It plays more like Minis March Again, but with level designs that match it a whole lot better. Stages also have an extra collectible coin to focus on. You very quickly have to start managing multiple mini types at once, needing to guide them to their own respective door instead of everyone piling up into a single one. And also, the music for the first world is a remix of the main theme from Super Mario Bros. 2. Oh my god. It is very, very rare, but every time Nintendo remembers that game's existence, it just fills me with joy. Going into detail about this game makes it really, really hard to sell it any more than it just being a really polished puzzle game, and probably the best the formula has seen yet. It's no DK94, but this I still like. The minigames are, once again, pretty neat. There are still a ton of levels to play through. The construction mode returns that we still can no longer utilize. That is still very upsetting. The cutscenes, like last time, aren't great, but for a late-era DS game that I'm pretty sure nobody played, and I am not sure why Nintendo made it in the first place, yeah, it's pretty good. Now, when the 3DS came around with a much more compelling digital store, this may be finally the time to do something a bit different and something really cool. Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis on the Move. Wait a second. Mario and Donkey Kong. I think that's character development. Oh my god, they did it. They actually did something new. Whew, I didn't expect that. Let's talk about it. All right, so you ever play Pipe Dream? Or the hacking game in BioShock? You know, just some game where you gotta put down a series of pipes in the correct way to typically get liquid to its destination successfully? Yeah, that's all this is. Okay, I never said it was original. I think we can officially toss out originality with this series going forward. It all comes down to if it's actually quality or not. And yeah, you know, especially with this new polished art style and this funky beat that plays when you complete a level. This is indeed a great puzzle game for the system. Each of the 4 minis here also have their own puzzle type. Mini Mario works with a set of tiles given to you over time. Peach gives you a canvas with a specific amount of specific tiles. Toad is all about working with multiple toys at once. And DK is big. I'm not smart enough for this one. During the heyday of the 3DS's eShop, I adored these pick up and play puzzle games. I played a bunch of them, and this is easily one of the best ones out there. And of course, the level builder is here as well, and currently the 3DS's online service is still alive, so hey, there's actually some value here. You can download levels finally. We are still the furthest away from the series beginnings yet, but as it stands, I do really like this one, and I look forward to Nintendo trying out some more concepts with this Mini Mario idea. Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars. Alright, I guess they're fighting again. They don't even pretend like they have an original story at this point. A couple of still images with a slide transition pop into frame, and then you're in the game. Man, they really checked out on this one. That was gross. It's the same game again. Are you surprised? But now it looks better. Cool. I mean, I guess that does also mean that this is, once again, a good puzzle game, but all of the new Super Mario Bros. Games are also good platformers. It is still hard to convince someone to play every single one of them. However, with this game, Nintendo did experiment with cross-buy. The game is also available on the 3DS, and if you bought one version of it, you would also get the other. It was really cool back then seeing Nintendo give that a shot. People had been begging for some form of cross-buy at the time for a while, but why with Mario vs. Donkey Kong? Did anybody actually care? I guess there is the tipping stars mechanic now that is technically new. By downloading and playing other players' creations online, you would be able to tip them stars if you enjoyed them. That's it. Probably means now that for new players it is impossible to actually unlock everything since the game does use the stars to get the extras, but hey, who cares? It's Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars for the Nintendo Wii U. The most interesting thing about this game is it is an example of a tech demo given a full release. It was originally developed as a showcase for the Nintendo Web Framework, a tool that allowed developers to create games for the Wii U using web-based code, like HTML5. Kinda neat, actually. Come on now, you have totally heard of the Nintendo Web Framework, right? It's responsible for some mega hits like Tipping Stars. Yeah, whatever, this game is just okay, even if it was a really good puzzle game, because it looks exactly the same as the other ones, no one cares. And you know what's also weird? Outside of America, Nintendo gave this game a physical release. In Europe, the cases only include a download code, not an actual disc, but in Japan, hey, look at that! An actual disc! Something tells me this will be a big collector's item in the future, but once again, who really cares? They have a really good concept for a puzzle game here, but they are completely failing to give you any reason to actually use your hard-earned money and buy them. So the perfect response is, what if it were free? Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge, and the Mario vs. Donkey Kong title is officially dead, and now I'm sad. How did the series go on for as long as it did? I am quite amazed by that. It started off so cool, man. You take the original arcade game and evolve it for modern platforms, and you add in some new lore like bringing Pauline back into the fold. They did a great job. DK94 is still to this day fantastic. The original Mario vs. Donkey Kong is really good as well. And I guess in the grand scheme of things, I did enjoy Mini Land Mayhem 2, but man, the name Mario vs. Donkey Kong really means nothing anymore. The toy stuff is cool, they're really cute, I will give them that, but there is such potential for a modern Mario platformer that's all about puzzle solving instead of just platforming. This series, as it initially was, really deserves another chance. Ooh, that's right, the minis did show up in Mario Kart, I guess, so all's been forgiven then. But like I said at the start of the video, Nintendo did try different delivery methods with these games, and I will give them credit, that is kinda neat. You got the big bait and switch with the arcade game remake, arguably the biggest game Nintendo made for their DSiWare service, even though that bar was incredibly low. This was the series they attempted cross-buy with, and now you have a game that is free to play as long as you have some amiibo. So, okay, fine, I do already have all of these amiibo. Was this final game in the series any good? So the way Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge works is there's this whole lineup of minis from the Mario franchise now, right? And by tapping the corresponding amiibo, you get to play as them and access their very own very tiny set of 4 stages. All of the stages that you unlock have unique themes, like Luigi's Mansion for his stages, as well as original gimmicks like bouncing eggs off of walls for Yoshi. The stages for Rosalina all have pole stars and it plays the observatory theme from Galaxy, and ooh, I love that so much. They took an idea that makes total sense for the character and made it work within the confines of the toy puzzle idea. That's pretty cool. If you're lacking some of the amiibo to fully complete the game, as long as you have any amiibo, you can still play some of the game, just as this little ability-less block dude though. He does nothing cool. Boo! You're really missing out on the majority of the game at that point. It did get released on 3DS as well, which is way more fitting for this type of game in my opinion, but there's just nothing tying this game together. It is just a small series of levels if you already have the amiibo. Like, I totally understand there was a lot of pressure on Nintendo to make games for amiibo that made it seem like if you bought the figure, it wouldn't be used for just one game, and I guess it is a bit better than that stupid amiibo tap game that they also did. Most of you probably blocked it out of your memory and it shows, but the amount of content that's here if you do have every amiibo is still so minimal, and what is here is probably the easiest set of levels the franchise has seen yet. So, once again, it's just kinda whatever. Just make another DK94, I am begging you. So, considering Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge doesn't really have much of an ending, the true conclusion is in Tipping Stars. I'm about to get to the ending right now, it's the only one I haven't seen yet, just gotta do one last puzzle here. Let's see, maybe the series actually has a fulfilling conclusion.
Oh? Eh? Thank you very much.
Oh! Alright, so you mean to tell me this portly Italian man has not only been adventuring for his entire life, but on top of that, he's also not only played but mastered like a dozen sports as well? I don't know, man. This series is definitely not one to have realism as its strong suit, but this is a bit too unbelievable for me. Mario sports games for whenever you think the red guy and his ragtag group of friends are doing just a bit too much jumping, princess saving, or even kart racing. For almost as long as Mario has ever been around, he's been picking up some form of sports accessory, an appropriately themed ball, and honing his skills in a handful of new hobbies. And yes, I can hear you now. Yeah, of course, this all started back on the Virtual Boy with Mario's Tennis. No! You now may be taking a trip further back in the time machine to the NES to plain old black box golf. And I mean, this looks like Mario, right? It has to be. Well, while Nintendo did once consider this to be Mario, that would later be retconned with the Japanese Wii exclusive Captain Rainbow, which gave us Osan, who in this game is the washed up old golfer from that NES classic. And in this game he regularly scratches his golf balls that he stuffed in his overalls? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand why this game didn't get localized now. But yes, to answer the convoluted trivia question, naturally this leads us to the actual originator of Mario sports games, Game & Watch Donkey Kong Hockey. Of course, you must have known about this one, it's a gem. Point being, this whole wide world of Mario sports is a lot more diverse and vibrant than I thought it was gonna be before starting to work on this video. You know, you're probably thinking, oh, you got a couple of golf games, some tennis games, and then just a few other stragglers here or there, but no. I can assure you that is not the case. As someone who has now played every single game in this side genre, it is one of the most inconsistent side genres in this franchise, and I am excited to go through all of them. I figured it would be fun. It wasn't always fun, but I thought it was gonna be, so let's get on to it. Mario Golf and Mario Tennis. When you hear the phrase Mario Sports, there's a good chance that this is where your mind would wander to. And it makes sense, with only a few exceptions. If a Nintendo console existed, one of these wasn't too far behind. All of the Mario spin-off hype and buzz tends to hover around Mario Kart, and that makes sense too. But in my opinion, golf and tennis were usually just as big of a deal. Usually. It didn't really start off that way, of course. I did just mention Mario's Tennis on Virtual Boy. Yeah, Mario's Tennis. This one was his. It's just a boring standard tennis game with far too much red. What a surprise. It's essentially one step below Ultra Smash, honestly. But golf did have an early equivalent as well, with NES Open Tournament Golf for, brace yourself, the NES. Nintendo may have been able to retcon Mario out of Black Box Golf, but no matter how much time passes, they won't be able to do it with this one. I mean, that's him. No mistaking it. Can't change it here. No extra Mario brother, that's him. Even Donkey Kong shows up. I mean, I think that's him. He speaks perfect English here. Maybe this is the DK that would then go on to become Cranky Kong. I don't know. I'm not really sure where this fits on the timeline. It is an 8-bit golf game, so keep your expectations in check, but honestly, it's actually pretty good, even nowadays. It's certainly pretty difficult to be precise with your shots, but the sprite work is really nice, the soundtrack is catchy, mechanics are solid. The USA outfit that Mario has in this game would even be brought back in recent years with Smash Ultimate, Mario Odyssey, and even Super Rush. That's so neat. But as we got deeper into the N64 generation, it was clear that something would need to change if Mario were to maintain relevance in the sports field. We don't want simple old golf and tennis games with Mario in them. We want Mario games with golf and tennis in them, if that makes any sense. We already had options for normal sports games. If you wanted to play as a realistic Tiger Woods in a boring realistic golf course while avoiding lame realistic scandals, you already had those games to choose from. I want a golf with the Goombas. And thus, a champion entered the arena. Camelot. Oh, wait, sorry.
Camelot!
Yeah, he says it way better than I ever could. By this point in the company's timeline, Camelot definitely had a track record, but clearly it was their work with Hot Shots Golf on PS1 that was enough for Nintendo to trust them with their top IP. I can't say too much about that series as a whole, I've only ever played the first one, but hey, it's the only one that Camelot actually worked on, and wow, it's pretty uncanny with just how similar it ended up being to Mario Golf 64. You can see the framework all over this one. And right out of the gate, the rebirth of Mario Sports hit the ground running. Opening cutscenes for both golf and tennis. We start off being greeted by the cast enjoying their day and getting into mischief. And man, I love this so much. It's pretty rare to get full-blown cutscenes with any of these characters. It injects so much personality into a genre where you really wouldn't expect it. The human characters start showing up, Plum, who many of you have seen in the Smash Bros. Melee trophy. This is where she made her debut. What do you mean you forgot about Plum? This is also where we got our first whiff of Waluigi, a character so many people love for some reason. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I never really got the massive appeal. I apologize to the Waluigi fanbase out there. I'm a bit more of a Blue Mario guy myself. He made his debut in this game too, and nobody talks about him. He's the true underdog. But this level of charm is exactly what these games needed. When I said we wanted Mario games with sports in them, this is what I meant. This translates to the gameplay too. For both golf and tennis, we do have options to, of course, play a standard game with normal rules, but if you dig into the menu a little bit more, you can play tennis with item boxes in Bowser's Castle, go for a round of golf on Yoshi's Island. Golf 64 has a mini golf mode that we haven't seen in any of the other Mario Golf games, and I don't know, I always liked it. Or partake in a ring challenge in both sports. It's such a fun concept for an additional challenge, and it's simply great having more stuff to do. This whole ring idea works in both sports perfectly. And yes, it helps that the arcadey vibe is perfect here as well. Everything is so snappy and punchy. The soundtracks to these games are incredible too. And man, going back to that cast of characters, I mean, we got Plum, Maple, Harry. I'll give them credit. They got their one game, they got their money, and they got out. That's true goals. And if you loved those opening cutscenes, well, that charm carries into the whole animations in golf and the trophy celebrations in tennis. Dude, the trophy celebrations, these are like the best part of the game. Short clips of Mario characters just doing things with a trophy in frame. I love this. Wario talks like a damn Pokemon in his.
Wario, number one, Wario, number one, Wario.
That's amazing. I am a Nintendo fan, therefore I am easy to please. On the GameCube though, oh boy, this is where Camelot ascended to a higher plane. Mario Golf, Toadstool Tour, and Mario Power Tennis. Damn, these games are good. At their core, as you would expect, they are more of the same, but they look better, sound better, they run buttery smooth. And again, we got absolute godlike opening cutscenes that basically tell their own short stories at this point. All of these years later, they have not lost 1 ounce of entertainment value. They are so good. Hell, Power Tennis's opening even has a blooper reel. When do games have blooper reels? I want more of them. Everything about the presentation in these games is on point. However, Bowser's voice, it's a little bit off. Oh no, it sounds like it was me screaming into a microphone, but no, that's in the game. It's all of the additional stuff that makes these games so special. Mechanically, there's been some improvements, like now in golf, there's additional inputs for shots, giving you finer control than you had before, and tennis now has the power shots that add some more flair to your player on both an offensive and defensive front. And plus, PD Piranha is playable in this one. I just appreciate people trying new hobbies. And then for options, we have additional challenges like the Treetop Congo Canopy course in golf, where every hole is par 3, and hell, and then all of the crazy gimmick courses in tennis. I don't know why Camelot went this hard, they didn't need to, but there are so many wacky things to do in Mario Power Tennis, it's amazing. In 64, we had fancy courts that threw PNGs of Mario characters on them and called it a day, but here, not only do we have special courts that all slightly change the mechanics, like having this goo on Isle Delfino, or ball direction changing arrows in the WarioWare themed factory court. Oh my god, WarioWare got a reference in something, that's really cool. But each one even has an associated minigame in an entirely different menu. You get to paint Mario's face, avoid all of these ghosts in Luigi's Mansion. God, I love this game so much. Toadstool Tour didn't go as wacky as Power Tennis did. The imbalance in creativity between both is honestly pretty severe, but you would still be hard-pressed to do much better when it comes to either of these two sports. And of course, shoutouts once again to the fantastic trophy victories in tennis and the whole completion reactions in golf. Still really, really good. But oh, you may be saying to yourself, what about the Game Boy versions? Released alongside the N64 and GameCube games, we got Mario Golf and Tennis on the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance as well. The simply titled Mario Golf and Tennis on the Color, and Advance Tour and Power Tour on Advance. And hell, not too long after Mario Tennis GBC released, we even got Snoopy Tennis released exclusively for the console as well. Tennis fans and Game Boy Color fans were eating pretty good in 2001, that's all I'm saying. If you wanted that tried and true gameplay experience but in the palm of your hands, well, you got it here. Both consoles, both sports, the core experience is all here. But as you already know, yes, each of these games also comes with a fully fledged RPG mode as well. I mean, hey, it was the reason to play these games in the first place. As a human character of your choice, you attend a golf or tennis academy in the effort to rise the ranks, gain experience points to put into specific traits and better yourself, and eventually go one-on-one against Red Luigi himself. And these modes are simply amazing. Don't get me wrong, it's not like we have these grand sweeping RPG adventures with all of the twists and turns and varied gameplay mechanics you would expect in the genre. This isn't Golf Story we're talking about here, but they're still really good. I was just happy to talk about Golf Story. I love the idea of using a blank slate of a character as a means to sort of immerse yourself in this academy, bullying the other students and making them question why they even signed up in the first place. It's so satisfying. I will say though, the cast of characters in these academies, it's filled with some of the biggest nobodies I've ever seen. I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody's gonna be coming back to Mario Tennis here after a few years and they're gonna be like, oh man, it's that guy! They would even go on to make some of these characters playable too. Oh boy, I can't wait to play as, Flit. Should have taken the golf superstar Plum and put her in the tennis academy. That would have made a lot more sense. We would still be seeing the character to this day. You goofed up, Nintendo. You goofed up. You put your money on Flit, and no one cares about Flit. The champions in these two games are pretty cool though. Each of the two academies basically has a few boss fights that you have to get through before getting to the big Italian man at the very end. And I don't know, I always kind of saw them as like an Elite Four from Pokemon equivalent. I like that for this. And the icing on top of all of this, you could even transfer your characters to the console versions. You don't really see too many people talking about this feature nowadays because with the re-releases of the N64 games, people being nostalgic about the GameCube games, it's kind of just fallen by the wayside. But thanks to the N64 having a transfer pack, as well as the GameCube having the GBA link cable, you were able to take your characters, put them on the big screen, and it was so damn cool. Dude, the fact that your human character has their own trophy animation in tennis, that's amazing. That's me getting a trophy from Red Luigi. Ah! Oddly enough though, when we get to Power Tour, the final game of this Game Boy bunch, it's the only one where you can't transfer your characters to the console game. And there was never any explanation why either. It just kind of wasn't here now. Please buy the game anyway, I guess? Remember when Nintendo was hyping up Smash 4 and they said the handheld game and the console game was going to combine together in some sort of magical way? I was kind of hoping for something like this. It wasn't as cool, what we ended up getting. So all I'm saying is get these games on a Game Boy service for Nintendo Switch Online, bring the connectivity back, and we're golden, Nintendo. It's a simple thing. Don't make me beg for it. Now, after this is when we enter a bit of a weird phase with these games. You would think with the console next being the Wii, oh, of course, these games are going to be perfect for this console. Naturally, we're going to have a Mario Golf and Tennis game. No. During the new play control phase of the Wii's life, Nintendo ported Power Tennis to the console. And it's not very good. This was not a game built with motion controls in mind. You swing the Wii remote to swing the racket, sure, but it more so feels like a swing is simply activating a button press instead, and it just doesn't really feel all that good. It's functional, don't get me wrong, and hey, the new widescreen is nice, but it's not a version I would recommend. There is a brand new tutorial sequence here though, explaining how the new controls work, so that's something. I mean, really, Mario Golf would have fared a whole lot better, but considering this whole new play control thing barely lasted even a year, it doesn't seem like Toadstool Tour would have ever stood a chance. But when Nintendo fails, leave it to Capcom, I guess. Instead of Mario Golf, Camelot would give us We Love Golf, published by Capcom. It's just what Mario Golf would have been on the Wii, without the Mario characters, and the addition of motion controls. So if you really liked Plum, Harry, and Maple from Mario Golf 64, this is basically the same thing, it's just the human characters. And it's okay, the controls work decently, but it doesn't really feel like you're swinging the club one-to-one. You kinda just pull back the controller just enough so these symbols will cross each other, and then you swing when the next set of symbols cross over each other. And that's it. It doesn't feel one-to-one, it once again feels like you're just activating button presses. All while a sentient Wii remote yells at you the entire time.
Guard your back, Space. Point me down. Hold A or B.
Oh boy, that's exciting. Similar to the Hot Shots golf game of before, I know many golf games tend to play similarly, but it's bizarre playing something that feels and looks like Mario without actually being Mario. And since Capcom is the one who published this one, not Nintendo, there's actually some unlockable costumes for a load of Capcom characters. Apollo Justice, Ryu, Jill Valentine. This is the best part of the game. For those who are in a need of a Mario Golf game on this console, you do have a few other options, but I think this one is the one that's gonna fit that bill the best. And on the topic of weird golf games, check this out, Mobile Golf, a pseudo-sequel to Mario Golf GBC that was Japanese exclusive until recently when we got a fantastic English fan translation. Incredible. Alright, so follow me here. Late in the tail end of the Game Boy Color's life, like months before the GBA released late, Nintendo put out the Mobile Game Boy Adapter, which would allow players to connect to compatible mobile phones and essentially just go online. And this was for both Game Boy Color and Advance. You could race other players in Mario Kart Super Circuit. Of course, you had a slew of options in Pokemon Crystal. It seemed like only 24 games had some functionality with this device, but the most interesting one to me is rather than making a direct follow-up to Mario Golf, Camelot simply reused the engine and filled it with a ton of new content. And it's not just more of the same Mario Golf experience that the last game brought us. There's entire modes here that the Mario Golf game didn't see. Like you have this one mode where you're aiming between these pillars that are all set up, and even the mini golf mode that was also in Golf 64. Seeing all of this new content and otherwise forgotten characters is really cool. And what's extra cool is in the original release, some of the characters were unlockable only after connecting to the internet, and in that fan translation, the unlock conditions have been modified, so you can access a bulk majority of the content without ever needing to worry about that pesky internet connection. Some of the menus that were based around said online functionality are still here, and it's something that we can't experience nowadays. It's just kinda here taunting us, but other than that, the full experience is here. Good on ya, Mark Max, putting in the good work and doing what Nintendo won't do themselves. And then there's that weird phase I mentioned earlier. You know, with the 3DS, we started getting some regular releases again. We got Mario Tennis Open and Mario Golf World Tour, and then fast forward to the Switch, we got Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Golf Super Rush. I'm not gonna say these games are bad right out of the gate, I don't think that's fair to those titles, but it's very clear that this whole era is very different than what we were used to on the N64 and GameCube. And yes, Ultra Smash also happened. Mario Tennis Open is so boring. They somehow managed to remove all skill from the gameplay. Now you'll regularly see these color spots pop up on the field, and each color correlates to a specific shot that's also indicated on the touchscreen. I know it's possible to resist the temptation to do so, but the gameplay loop now is you kind of just run up to the spot, tap the area on the touchscreen that's glowing, and there you go. That's the game now. There are some neat mini games. The Mii customization is kind of cute, but there's no RPG mode in sight, so who really cares? This is a pretty dire experience, honestly. It's a functional game, and I'll give the game credit, I guess, but coming from the previous games, what a massive downgrade. And that's doubly so in Ultra Smash. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, you want me to go on this big old mega rant about this game like everybody else does? Quite frankly, I'd rather give this game as little time as possible. It is easily one of the laziest games in the Mario franchise. I would dare call it trash. And I mean, there's no opening cutscenes in these games either. This was a telltale sign that these titles were destined to fail. But then, what about the golf outing on the 3DS? There's Mario Golf World Tour, and this is the best game in the series. Oh god, yeah, that whiplash really hits like a truck. Okay, so I'm gonna assume that Camelot must have felt really bad for how lazy Tennis Open was, cause they overloaded the hell out of World Tour. You know that discrepancy between Mario Power Tennis and Toadstool Tour when it comes to creativity? You flip that on the 3DS, and that's World Tour and Open. The controls are as tight as they've ever been, the course design is all over the place with these bright and vibrant colors and unique landscapes like underwater. There's a bunch of proper Mario-themed locations like a full-blown Donkey Kong Country Returns course, a bunch of great new whole celebration animations for each character, a massive challenge mode with over 100 different challenges to go for, something all of these games should have done, honestly. And there was even paid DLC that brought back the 6 courses from Golf 64. 4 of them do use the old layouts with a new Super Mario Bros. And Mario Galaxy art style, which is kinda strange, because the first 2 are back in their full glory with the original art style and the original music. That's fantastic! And while there's no RPG mode here and that is kinda missed, we do have the Castle Club instead, a quasi-story mode where you take your Mii, throw on some fancy outfits, and just do some good old-fashioned golfing. There's like a world map that you can travel to access all of the courses. I guess by definition it's an RPG, but I'm not gonna say it is. And at the time when this game was new, there were even a ton of weekly online tournaments that featured a wide range of different modes and rule sets, and participating in them is what gave you the costumes that were based off of a bunch of Nintendo consoles. They actually released a game with an online component and managed to keep things interesting for months after the release. This isn't a subtle jab at the current state of golf and tennis at all. World Tour, man. Camelot killed it with this one, far and away my favorite Mario Golf game yet. And I would also say this is one of the finest examples of post-launch game support Nintendo has ever done. So what the hell happened on the Switch? Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Golf Super Rush. What an oddball pairing we got here. I know this isn't the most controversial opinion out there, but while these games aren't necessarily bad, you could have a lot of fun with them, you can tell that this Camelot just doesn't have the same dedication to quality of the Camelot a few years prior. Each one provides a brand new game-altering gimmick. Tennis has a new slowdown mechanic that, combined with either defense or offense with new power shots, leads to some really epic 1v1 moments. And in golf, the traditional putting process has been changed up with a brand new meter, this ring system for gauging your shot's distance, and the option to play with multiplayer golfers at the same time and run after your ball after hitting it, and you gotta sit there and watch everyone else finish their shot, even if you're playing with computer players. Oh. The changes done to Tennis and Aces are undoubtedly better. I would argue it is the best a Mario Tennis game has felt yet. And to be fair, in Super Rush, when you're not messing around with all these new tweaks implemented and just boil it down to the classic golf experience that we're all used to, it is still a really fun game. It's all that new stuff that kinda sucks. The sport of tennis was always a more competitive and frantic game anyway. The dynamic with the intense risk and reward power shot system here with the slow-mo meter, god, it damn near feels like a fighting game at times. It's amazing. As for golf though, I don't know, man. I can tell a lot of this effort was to speed up the process, but for this sport, I always figured it was supposed to be slower and more tactical, so a lot of these changes just didn't make sense to me. I always valued seeing how my opponents would take their shots to see if there was anything that I can do differently. When it's just a non-stop mad dash to the hole for every single hole, I don't care what happens, just do the furthest shot in a straight line, book it to where it landed, and then you rinse and repeat, and maybe you win, maybe you won't. I don't know, have fun, I guess. Keep the rules simple, take a stroll through New Donk City, and Super Rush is still a blast. The Mario Golf part, not so much the Super Rush part. The biggest problem that plagues these two games is that there's just not a whole lot to do in them. You can play offline and online. That's basically it. All of those quirky modes we got in the previous games, they're mostly gone. Super Rush has this brand new Battle Golf mode, which doesn't really have a whole lot of staying power in my opinion. There's only 2 maps, most of the games play out the same way in my experience, but clearly they thought it was going to be a big deal because the opening cutscene is like all based on that one mode. They put all of their bets on that one mode and then didn't do much with it. It's weird. It's just very weird. And then over time, after launch, Ace has received a bunch of fun modes, like the returning ring mode. But even still, the previous games had a lot more to offer. At launch, it was a lot more dire than it is now. We do have story modes in both games though, harkening back to the old Game Boy games. Except not. The story mode in Super Rush is dreadful. You play as your Mii and you go up the ranks by doing the same thing over and over again. It is so boring and repetitive. At least in the Game Boy games, you had the charm of being in this academy with a bunch of other humans, but now you're just like this one guy amidst a bunch of Mario enemies. It's just... It's not good. It's not good, and then you got the cross-country section where there are a whole bunch of holes available in like an open world, and you have a limited set of shots to make them all, with terrible terrain changes and a bunch of wind BS. Oh my god, it is so bad. If I never do this again for the rest of my life, I will not be upset by it. The story mode in Tennis is still a bit rough, but it is way better. Essentially, it is more of a series of missions set up on a world map. I appreciate that gameplay loop a whole lot more. And the story is like, this evil tennis racket is mind controlling all of your friends because it's been awakened from its slumber in like this tomb by Wario and Waluigi, and now you have to travel all the different lands and find these special stones to conceal its power. It is dumb. It is so dumb, and that is exactly what I want. It is still repetitive, but it is way more in line with what I think a story mode should be in a game that doesn't really need one. Then we get to the whole conversation of Nintendo releasing a game with content blatantly held back just so they can give us updates months down the line. I mean, we're even seeing this with Switch sports. Mario's not the only culprit here, releasing with a sport being hyped up to release later on. But I don't know, man, it's just the time we live in now. I'm not that big of a fan, but it is what it is. I still think the approach of overloading us with content and rewarding us with extras like in World Tour is the better approach, but I'm not a multi-billion-dollar company, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And especially if you look back at the update history of Mario Tennis Aces, because like, they clearly had no idea what they were doing. Roughly a year after the game's launch is when they dropped an opening cutscene. It wasn't there at the start, but a year later, oh hey, cool, now I know what the story is instead of just a bunch of text boxes. And we had just the most high-quality voice editing to boot.
Luigi!
I feel like that's a voice line from like 10-15 years ago. Good job, good job. It's the laziest thing I've ever seen in my life. The best thing I can say that the Switch has provided these two sports is how fast Mario Golf Super Rush boots from the Switch's menu. There you go, that's it. That's it, the game is now loaded. Well, how is that possible? That's magic. But when all is said and done, while it is very easy to go on this hate train of saying that the modern games are the worst in the franchise, I would argue the opposite. The 3DS and the Switch are where you can find some of the best experiences the golf and tennis games have to offer. I know, very hot take, I guess. Now, obviously, we've only talked about 2 sports thus far, golf and tennis. But to be fair, this is where Mario and crew spend most of their time. But now, let's shake things up a little bit. Let's add 2 more balls to the equation. GameCube was truly the haven for Mario sports games, man. Not only did Camelot grace us with great golf and tennis games, but now we have baseball and soccer in the mix too. Or football, if any of you Europeans out there feel the need to correct me. Lord knows Nintendo felt the need to put football in the titles over there. Just so nobody got confused, I guess. They probably guess a European's gonna look at Mario Strikers and just be completely lost. I have no idea what that could be. But hey, it doesn't even matter. This isn't dinky old Mario Soccer in line with what golf and tennis are. This is Super Mario Strikers, damn it. Your favorite plumbers are gonna die. Next Level Games, the team responsible for NHL Hits Pro and eventually, Ticket to Ride on Xbox 360. Huh. Took up the task of taking the world of Mario characters, putting them on a big soccer field, and making them incredibly violent first and good at kicking around a ball second. Dude, the level of intensity in these games is fantastic. Passing the ball around to teammates to power it up, items being handed out for being ruthless on the field and shoving your opponents into an electric fence, oh my god. Charging up these ultra shots in a glorious flashy fashion before, just shooting it into the goal like it's a shotgun blast. Super Mario Strikers is one of the best multiplayer experiences you can find in my opinion. It's bombastic and over the top, but it's still very easy to understand, making it very accessible. In this first GameCube entry, there's not much more to it. It's not like we're inundated with a bunch of modes and options here. What you see is what you get. Just an intense time, either solo or with friends. God, even the artwork is incredible. These hard colors, bright lighting, insane line work. It is so good. The style in these games is unparalleled. I guess like the only thing I can think of is like Sonic Riders, kinda. That GameCube era, man. We were edgy for like 20 minutes and this artwork shows. And that level of intensity is just upped even more so in the Wii sequel, Charged. Oh my god, this opening video is incredible. You would think all of these characters genuinely want to kill each other. This is a side of the Mushroom Kingdom you can't get anywhere else. And I love it so much. Dude, Bowser with the red shell, that's all I need, man. It's so cool on him. In essence, this is more of the same, but there's a lot of small things added here and there to add to the complexity. All the characters now have unique specials, you have a whole lot more freedom in what your team consists of, all of the fields now have additional gimmicks, and that whole charged thing, you were able to charge shots before, of course, but now by passing the ball enough, it starts to glow white, and if you can nail a power shot when it's in that form, you can go for upwards of 5 points in a single attempt. Where it is then up to the goalie to use the Wii Remote's pointer to block the shots. Yeah, this is why I prefer the original game, honestly. Charged does so much so well. The music is sick, Waluigi does crotch chops, the title screen is a zoom in on Mario's crotch, there is so much crotch in this game. But the overall gameplay loop is just about constantly passing and hoping to nail a super. Just keep doing that. And in my opinion, the simplicity of the original allowed for more options in terms of strategy. Plus, you can also play as a weird robot in that one. Not really sure what that's about, we kinda just let it happen and we didn't ask enough questions. Super Team, basically the game's final boss, which can then become playable. I don't know, these things are just kinda here. These games are also notable for being the introduction of Daisy getting to truly shine. You see, before this, it was all about, hi, I'm Daisy, but now, she's here to say that, while also being incredibly badass. This is why she's become my favorite princess. At the time of this video, the newest entry, Mario Strikers Battle League, is just about to release, but it's looking like it's gonna be really good. You can combine 2 different types of fields at the same time, there's customization options, you have this mechanic where you can bump your teammate forward to get a head up on the opponents, it's really great, and then Rosalina's here, that's even greater. Provided the end result is not a monumental screw-up, this will easily be one of the best multiplayer experiences on the Switch. Despite the fact that Daisy isn't in the launch roster, so if she isn't post-game DLC, I'm gonna be very mad. Around the time of the original Mario Strikers, Next Level was also set to work on a volleyball wrestling hybrid under the name Super Mario Spikers. There's not too much known about this one outside of the general concept, but from what's managed to make it out into the public, it looks like it would have been pretty cool. Here's some footage of Yoshi body slamming himself. It would have been great. And then we have baseball, courtesy of Namco, with Superstar Baseball on GameCube and Super Sluggers on the Wii. Do you think anybody was confused about what that second game was without the sport in the title? Super Sluggers. Oh god, what are they slugging? Oh! That's a baseball.
Jaggers.
And just like the other sports games thus far, we start off with fantastic opening cutscenes. Camelot was such a trendsetter here, and it's for the best, honestly. There is no better way to get hyped up for these games than with these little movies. They're fantastic. Look at this. Luigi almost dies, but he actually caught the ball, and the crowd goes wild! Woohoo! So yes, this is in fact baseball with a very arcadey vibe. The biggest thing being this power meter that you can use both as the pitcher and the batter, giving all of the main characters a unique shot depending on when you use it. You got plenty of themed fields to play in, bringing in a whole bunch of gimmicks. You have items that you can use as well, a lot of minigames that all play off basic baseball skills like pitching power and running between bases. I love those. This is exactly what you think about when you would hear Mario and baseball. We have no aura of death like we have with Mario Strikers, but it's fine. And these rosters too, oh my god, they're gigantic. The fact that we had to resort to the Piantas and Nokis from Sunshine, baby Donkey Kong is here, you know, from Yoshi's Island DS, and that's it. In general, like the titles before it, both of these play almost exactly the same. It's just that in the sequel, all of the pitching and batting is done with semi-decent motion controls. They're not terrible, but they are better than new play control Mario Power Tennis, and I don't know, maybe worse than Wii Sports Baseball? There's the middle ground, I guess. Both these games also have single-player modes where you run around a little map and play a bunch of different games to build up a sizable team to take down Bowser. And all the teams have these cute little names too. There's the Yoshi Islanders, Mario Sunshines, Peach Monarchs. Somebody got paid for this. The mode is very similar in both games, including most of the characters speaking full English. That's very bizarre. Fortune Street did this too, and every time it happens, every time a full sentence comes out of these characters' mouths, it's very unsettling. Things are slightly more complex with the overworld puzzle solving in Super Sluggers, but I don't know, I can't help but feel like these were pretty forced. These single player modes in these sports games only work if you either play it straight and make it a full-blown RPG, or you give us an absurd save the world plot like in Aces. The stuff we have here in baseball, it's too middle of the road to really be seen as anything interesting. Oh, be sure to trace the lines on this Wario sign. Why are we doing this? Thankfully, when we're not playing basic old baseball or diving into some of the minigames, we do also have the Toy Field mode, where instead of playing traditional baseball, it's all a mad scramble between 4 players to land the ball on these special panels on the field. You get a bunch of items and point multipliers. It's great. I love this one. There is no shortage of options for multiplayer fun in these titles. It's just the single player that kinda sucks. And I do hope that once Battle League comes and goes, we get a return to baseball as well. A modern take on this formula with some new tweaks here or there would be really cool. And make sure Daisy's there at launch, or so help me God. And also, the menacing red dry bones too. This is clearly the most evil thing in the roster, and I want to see it again. It deserves a chance to be better. And now that covers the 4 main sports: golf, tennis, baseball, and soccer. And no matter what, at the end of the day, these games do offer a lot of really good things. You got really great opening cutscenes, you got arcadey fun with a lot of Mario charm, and just excellent multiplayer offerings in general. Not every game, but in general. I mean, hell, even stupid old Ultra Smash can be fun. Over drinks with friends, and you just complain about the game the whole time. It's fun. It's not what they were going for, but it could be fun. But, of course, we do have some of those stragglers as well that you don't really see too often. Of course, we have the Mario and Sonic at the Olympics games. I do think those technically count, but I've already covered them in the past, so we're not going to talk about them here. Let's really do something that you wouldn't see coming. Let's talk about Square Enix. What? Mario Hoops 3-on-3 by Square Enix. God, what? 3-on-3 basketball for the DS. Strangely enough, the only dedicated Mario sport game to hit the console. Okay. I always figured a Mario Tennis game where the court took up both screens made all the sense in the world, but like I said before, what do I know, I guess? I only have good ideas, not enough money to make these games. Let's get Squeenix to do a basketball game instead. The big gimmick here is doing all of your main actions on the touchscreen. Oh joy. Swiping the screen to attempt stealing a ball, tossing items onto the floor, or going in for a jump shot, and tapping the screen a whole bunch to dribble. Like, a lot. A lot of tapping. Probably destroyed a lot of DS demo units at Walmart, I can tell you that much. And it's okay. Once you get past the novelty of this even being on the DS, it gets pretty old pretty quickly, since every game just revolves around you dribbling the ball a whole bunch of times on these question mark blocks to accumulate some points, so you can make over 100 points in a single shot. Why? That's so excessive. It has the perfect amount of Mario charm, like there's a stage where you use PD Piranha as the hoop, and that's just fun. But I feel like the point system is just a bit too nonsensical to have any lasting power. And then you got Final Fantasy characters playable here too? okay, why not? I mean, Square Enix did make the game, so it makes sense, but also doesn't make sense at the same time. A ninja, a white and black mage, Cactuar. This is a fever dream. I'm playing the game right now, and I still don't think it's real. And then Nintendo said, hey, do it again, but with even more sports in one package on the Wii. Mario Sports Mix. Right off the bat, well, not literally, there's no baseball bats in this one. Things are looking up. An opening cutscene, thank goodness. Now you have all of your favorite characters finding themselves in a white empty void to play a variety of sports. I guess it would be pretty difficult to properly convey all 4 of the included sports in anything but a white void, so in that essence, job well done. But yes, we have 4 sports in one game. The returning basketball, volleyball, hockey, and dodgeball. And why these 4 sports specifically? Well, because the selling point to Sports Mix is simply providing a fun arcadey experience rather than trying to infuse these sports with as much Mario juice as possible. And in the case of basketball, you can still rack up coins to get more points when scoring, but it's a lot less severe, and that change alone makes this a much better time. Just imagine all 4 of these games with the motion controls that you would expect. That's what we have here. And like before, it's okay. The traditional modes offer a safe, basic game with some of the courts offering just enough of a gimmick to spice things up, and when you want to go a little extra, each sport also has an associated minigame in the party mode. You get to dunk fruit in Petey's mouth, dodge bombs, volleying balls in a co-op rhythm game. This stuff is pretty cool. God, there's even a boss fight against a behemoth king. Like, what? What in the holy hell is going on here, Square Enix? This is one of the most insane things I ever witnessed. Thank you. However, single player is terrible. There is like a story about this comet falling from the sky and having crystals that have sports balls in them. That's dumb and amazing, but it all just results in a basic tournament mode, which is painfully easy. And I mean just disgustingly mopping the floor with opponents in every single sport easy. And you have to go through said mode with all 4 sports in order to unlock everything. It doesn't matter if you already unlocked a court or character in hockey, you gotta go through it all over again in volleyball, and then the remaining 2 sports, you gotta go through 4 things to full completion in order to beat the game. That's terrible. What is it, Sonic Heroes? Luckily, there is an unlock everything code if you just want to get in there with some friends immediately with all of the options, so I would just recommend doing that and bypassing the story mode altogether. You can play as a slime in this one, damn it, and that should not be held back from the wanting public. I mean, if your choice of teammate is either a damn slime or NBA legend Rick Mahorn, I think your choice is obvious. Look at those rep points. Poor old Rick doesn't stand a chance. Oh god. Oh god. I always forget this happened. You really want to see a fever dream? Well here, NBA Street V3 and SSX on tour for the GameCube. Oh, featuring the Mario Brothers and Peach for some reason. I guess this was in the same vein of putting Link in Soul Calibur. You just have this big third-party game, put a Nintendo character in there, it'll sell more, I guess, so why not put Mario into real-life sports games? What we got here is more or less the same title that you can find on other consoles, just with a couple additional characters and like a new stage here or there. There's a bunch of sound effects in SSX on tour. This is a sin. These all look like mediocre PC mods, but I assure you, I don't like it, but I can assure you this is real. And amazingly enough, this wasn't really enough to swing the pendulum in Nintendo's favor at the time and sell more GameCubes. My god, I'm stunned. This edge that Nintendo tried to have in the mid-2000s, man, they gave Mario a tribal tattoo. Nothing was off limits here. The games may be painfully easy in single player, but I think I still gotta hand it to Mario Hoops and Sports Mix in the basketball 1v1 department here. These real life sports games look like you just have humans versus humans in Mario costumes. I don't like it. If anything, I just gotta give Square Enix credit for managing to get a decent final product out of 4 sports in a single game. It's not amazing, but if you ever find yourself in a multiplayer Wii session with some friends, this isn't a bad choice. So when Camelot, the head honchos, tried to do the same thing on 3DS with Mario Sports Superstars, oh boy was I ever excited! Ah! Holy sh**, this game is bad. You see, you would think, oh wow, we're getting golf, tennis, baseball, and soccer in one package? And there's horse racing in here too? Oh my god, yes, finally, this is a dream come true. It's just the 5 sports games and that's it. Like, devoid of variety, options, and Mario theming. that's really it. It's just the sports. There is technically a minigame per sport, but they are hidden in like the training menu for some reason. The golf and tennis modes are fine. You're losing a lot of the options you had in the core titles that were already on the console. You see, the problem is when you tell Mario fans you're getting those sports in a brand new game finally, people want more of what they were getting on the home consoles. This is just the most basic adaptations of these sports you could find. It's dreadful. Oh, but what about the one shining asterisk of the bunch? Horse racing. The one thing the Mario franchise had clearly been missing all this time. Well, the horse designs are kind of cute. Hey, look at this, a first-person mode. It's like I'm really on a cartoon horse. I think it's obvious that this is another byproduct of the early Amiibo craze like Amiibo Festival was. You see, alongside the game's release was a brand new set of Amiibo cards for each character and each sport. And hey, made total sense at the time. Sports trading cards are totally a thing, let's capitalize on it. And then they reused DDR Mario Mix art for Bowser on the soccer card? This was doomed to fail from the start. Plus, the in-game Amiibo breakout mode is terrible. This whole thing is just a non-stop onslaught of bad. You dare make a game where Pink Gold Peach is one of the few unlockable characters, and you expect me to be excited about that? At the tail end of the 3DS's life, there was a bit of an aura of Nintendo simply trying to fill out the schedule as we got closer to the release of the Switch. And while it's not as insulting as Ultra Smash was, this is another example of what I meant when I said earlier that the Camelot from the early days was a whole lot different than the Camelot we have here. But at the end of the day, with all of these sports games finally wrapped up, yeah, you know, I think this whole Mario sports concept was a massive success. In modern times, we certainly got issues to be concerned about, like Super Rush's post-launch content strategy and Battle League's glaring omission of Daisy, but in the grand scheme of things, these games do exactly what they need to. They take the characters from the Mario universe, throw them into an arcadey sports atmosphere with a good dose of Mario influence with items and gimmicks aplenty, and just give us these really fun games to play single player and especially multiplayer. And clearly, with Battle League, this trend won't be stopping anytime soon, so whether or not the upcoming outings are fantastic, just average, or even flat out bad, this will forever be one of the best things to come out of the Mushroom Kingdom. They're also essentially totally responsible for all the personality that Daisy and Waluigi have, so yeah, I think it's all a net positive. I know for many people out there, sports video games aren't necessarily your thing, and honestly, same here. But when Mario gets involved and we get overloaded with options, there's a ton of Mario charm, just a great overall multiplayer experience, oh, I'm on board 100%. I love that stuff. I loved going through all the games that have come out thus far, and I am very excited to see whatever happens in the future. I think this was a good call for me to go through this whole comprehensive look. I had a lot of fun, and I think I covered everything. No, okay, wait, sorry, I forgot. There is one. There's also Luigi's Hammer Toss. It was an early LCD watch game that came out, I want to say 1990, and when you boot it, it apparently plays La Cucaracha. Because of course it does.